Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. And today we are going to talk about emergencies and having the right systems in place when an emergency happens. And I have a guest today who has gone through emergencies in her life. So she is the person to have on the show today. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Kaci.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
And I'm glad you're here because we were chatting before I hit record and I told Kaci, yeah, I'm pretty sure I don't have any emergency systems in place. So if I were to get hit by a car tomorrow and be in the hospital for 3 weeks, my audience would be like, yeah, where did she go? Like, what happened to Allison? Like, I probably don't have anything in place, and my husband would not know anything to do with my business or the show. So I think it's really great to talk about this topic today, have you here, because I bet a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, they might have like systems and processes for like staying in touch with clients
Yeah.
and, their social media and having it all scheduled. But like when an actual emergency hits, like what do we do? So before I get into my questions, because I really want to talk about this, Kaci, do me a favor and just introduce yourself to the audience and let them know what you do.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Kaci Ackerman. I am a systems and ClickUp expert. So I help women in business save 5-10 hours weekly with systems. And we also work on setting up an emergency plan. Um, one thing is you can always plan for vacations and maternity leave, and if your team members are out, you can plan for all of that. One thing you cannot plan for ahead of time is when an emergency happens. So I'm super excited to talk about this today.
And I am too. So why do you think, in your opinion, business owners and entrepreneurs don't have an emergency plan?
It's not thought about. Like people don't think that you're just going to end up in the hospital for 7 days, or you're going to get diagnosed with cancer, or you're going to, this wasn't an emergency, but another thing happened. My husband got a awesome opportunity and we moved out of state within a month.
Oh,
So those are big things, that happen. And sometimes you don't have a plan, 30 days to sell your house and move, 2 states away is not a lot of time. So you have to be able to act fast, and then also, when you're in the hospital for 7 days, the last thing you're doing is on your phone. The last thing you're doing is working on your business. Um, and I think that also with entrepreneurs, especially in this online space, we are so go, go, go all the time that we have no idea how to even plan for like a vacation, let alone if an emergency happens. Because oftentimes I see this time and time again, your hard work pays off overnight. Your business blows up. All of a sudden, you are, nonstop flying off the seat of your pants, working. And the last thought in your mind is, nothing bad is going to happen. This is awesome. I'm just going to work, 40 hours,
Mhm.
60 hours a week. No big deal. And so there's no thought in your mind because your business is booming. Um, and then it happens.
So I feel like that there is a backstory here. And if you don't mind touching on this, because I want to know, like, how did you get into becoming an expert on systems for an emergency? So I
Yeah.
have a feeling like something had to spark this in the past for you. Because were you always an entrepreneur and in the systems realm, or were you doing something differently?
Yeah. So my business flourished through COVID. I was a dental office manager for 7 years. And so there were, like systems and processes and team management, and all that kind of stuff that come along with being an office manager. Um, and we did deal with, dentists being out and different processes we have in place for that kind of stuff. But when COVID hit, everything closed, obviously. And I
Mhm.
was like, you know what? I want to do this now. And so I started my business, and here I am, almost 3 years later, which is awesome. But 2021 happens. And like I said, my business blew up, and I was moving and grooving, and I was super excited about it, and everything was fantastic. And then boom, April, I ended up in the hospital for 7 days. through an emergency surgery. And I had a VA, and she was able to email my clients, but that was kind of it. You know, there wasn't really anything in place. And I, in the hospital, had to tell my VA that I was in the hospital. You know, like
Mm.
I didn't have anything. I didn't have like my husband had no contact with my virtual assistant to reach out to her and tell her this. There was no plan in place, you know, at all. I just told her like, tell my clients I'm out of commission, you know. Um and then in 2021, I was diagnosed with cancer in October. And
Wow.
that's also the same month that we moved from California to Idaho. So my life in 2021 was a lot of events. This was planned, but we actually also got married in 2021. So a lot was just happening. And the first thing that happened though was the emergency surgery in April. And I knew that something had to change because not only did I obviously want to live my life out of my business for fun and, you know, all those things that, like I said before, you can plan for, but I also wanted to make sure that my business was secure if an emergency happened. And I wanted to know that my business would not just like go up in flames if an emergency happened, you know, and I just wasn't and your audience doesn't necessarily forget about you if you know, have an emergency, but having a plan in place just allows, like, if you have team members, they know what to do. If you don't have team members, have a written thing to where your family or a close friend has that plan and knows what to do. Because for you, so you have a podcast, you should probably have a step in there of email my list and let them know, like even have an email templated out, so your husband could easily just go in, shoot off this email, and now your list is notified that your podcast is on pause. You know, there's some personal matters that are going on and you will be back, you know, when you can, type thing. So just having some sort of written emergency plan, think of like an evacuation plan, you know, like there's all these steps you got to do. And it's super important to also have that in your business, because what are you going to do if you end up in one of those situations? And obviously, I did not know I was going to end up in the hospital. I did not know that I was going to get diagnosed with cancer. Those are not things that I was like, oh, I'm going to plan for this to happen in April and plan for this in October and everything's going to be great. You know, it was a lot. And that's when so April happened, and then we decided to build out this plan of what happens, and then we executed it again in October.
Wow. And good thing the second time you had that plan, because I'm sure it was, because you don't need that on your mind as a business owner. If you're going
No.
through an emergency, you don't need that in the back of your head. So I want to get a little tactical here, because that's what I'm all about on this show. Like,
Yeah.
let's give the audience some tactical tools and information so they can start building out their emergency plan. So there are 3 types of systems that you use, correct? And I would love for you, if you don't mind, telling us what those systems are and kind of how to get started setting this up.
Yeah. So I use ClickUp foremost. That's my biggest piece of my entire business. And then SOPs and Dubsado support that. So Dubsado is a CRM. So think of that as like your client relationship management, contracts, invoices, proposals. SOPs are simply written processes. So anybody can look at an SOP and be able to execute a task at hand without question. And then ClickUp is a project management tool that houses my entire business. So anything that we do business related is inside ClickUp, and my team is there, and they have everything's connected. So those SOPs are in every single task. We then inside ClickUp have a folder called Team Management, and we have a team directory there. We have the team meeting area, and then we also have the emergency plan. So they all have access to that. And so if something does happen, we not only have a team directory with an emergency contact in there. So if I don't hear from one of my team members for, 2 to 3 days, which is not normal, I could reach out to their emergency contact and say, hey, I'm checking in, just want to make sure everything's okay. Haven't heard from this person. If something happens to me, they have a written process right there inside our project management tool. and they can go through those steps and execute all of those steps without question, and I'm not needed. So that is what we have. All of our client related information is in Dubsado, so they are very easily able to go in, grab any client info that they need, and send out, any emails that is needed or connect with anybody. There's the team directory, so they can connect with each other to make sure, people are notified to know what's going on. And so, yeah, that's the tactical part of it, of basically like a written process that anybody can jump in and execute for you.
Now, how about a solopreneur? Someone who doesn't even have an assistant. She does everything on her own. So she would basically need a written emergency process. And would she give this to her spouse?
Yeah, or a very close friend. So maybe
Okay.
like a really close business friend, or a close family friend, or another family member, like a sibling, or spouse. Somebody where that they will know an emergency is going on for them to execute this piece for your business. And so I I probably wouldn't put it on my spouse, only because if something's going on with you, they probably are
Mhm.
not present to take care of something like that, depending on what it is. So having it set up for a sibling or a close family friend, or, your best friend or something, to where, because they're gonna know, that something's going on with you, and then they can execute that on your behalf, and then your spouse is not trying to deal with the fact that you're dealing with an emergency, and then also trying to deal with this, like, process that he's gotta do to make sure your business you know what I mean?
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's a good point, to not put it on your spouse, but put it maybe on a very close business friend,
Mhm.
someone who you would trust to log in mainly to your email list. I'm thinking of a like that would be like the number one
Yes.
thing is
Yep.
send out. And so you should have a template ready for that,
Yep.
written out, passwords, all that good stuff. Anything else that, because I'm trying to think of all the different, like checking the boxes as far as an emergency plan.
Yeah, so, um, if you have depending on how your business is structured, if you have retainer clients, you would need
Mhm.
to turn off their invoices depending on how long you're gonna be out, or prorate them or something. So maybe, like, pausing all invoices would be another task. Notifying them separately than just a blast email, and preferably before that blast email if you have clients. Because the last thing you want is for them to get this blast email and they have no idea, and all of a sudden they're just like, wait, what? So having the communication with clients first, if you have clients, setting up a process where you know how to pause invoices or prorate them, depending on what's going on in that process. If you have somebody that doesn't really know your business very well, I would just set up a process where they can pause invoices and also send out emails to your clients. The other thing too is you want to just pause all tasks. So just have it in there of, if you're a solopreneur, there's not much you have to do at that point. But if you do have a team, knowing that the team does not need to be pushing out content, or pushing out emails, because that could get, in my opinion, a little bit odd. Like, oh, this person's having an emergency and they told me, but now they're pushing out content. Like, are they
Mhm.
available or not? You know, Especially if you have clients that are thinking, okay, well, you're posting on social media, but you're telling me, so like just having a system where we pause everything's on hold. And that means that they need to go into your scheduler and maybe turn off those posts that are scheduled out, for that time being. If there's any pre-emails that are scheduled, pausing those. Um, Maybe even for a podcast, if you have a friend that knows how to podcast, them just putting out a small, like, depending on how long you're going to be out, if it's only a week, I wouldn't do this. But if you're going to be out for months, I would consider just throwing out a small little podcast episode that says, Allison is dealing with family matters. This podcast is on hold. Please, stay tuned for more updates or something, depending on what kind of emergency you may be dealing with, and how much, like, time or availability you have emotionally, depending on what's going on.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Now, earlier you mentioned ClickUp. I've only heard ClickUp from one other biz friend. So tell us a little bit about ClickUp and why you use it.
Yeah. So, ClickUp keeps my sanity in my business. And the reason it does is because everything that has to do with my business is inside ClickUp. So, ClickUp is very relatable to Trello, Asana, Monday, Notion, Basecamp, any sort of project management tool out there. That's what ClickUp is, but like on steroids, if you will. So for instance, a small example is I ditched Google Suite pretty much altogether outside of my regular email inbox. And that is because ClickUp has the ability to create docs. It has the ability to create forms. It has the ability to create sheets or like Excel type style. So ClickUp allows you to kind of consolidate the tools that you use in your business and focus on one place to work. So oftentimes I start my day inside ClickUp and I don't really leave ClickUp based off of my tasks, meaning I have less distractions going on. And so I actually am more efficient and get a lot more done in less time because we have everything in ClickUp. All of the tasks are there. They remind me. We keep all of like our recurring stuff in there. So anything happens in our business more than once, it's in there. And then the awesome thing is with ClickUp Docs, we have SOPs all written. And so again, in an emergency, like say my VA has an emergency and I need help, I can bring someone on very quickly because all of our tasks and SOPs are all connected. So these people can jump right in and read the SOP and know exactly what needs to be done with little to no question. And so that alone, like my energy is able to be spent in very specific areas of my business that actually generate revenue versus busy tasks, if you will.
Now, does ClickUp allow you is it also an email provider? Can you send emails through ClickUp?
It integrates with your email.
Okay.
So technically you could, but not like an email blast. You
Okay.
can't do anything like that. It's very specific of like you have to send it to you have to type in the email, if you will. So I wouldn't recommend it to like replace your email platform of like Flowdesk or MailerLite or ConvertKit or anything like that.
Now, what about social media management? Can you
Oh yeah.
schedule social media through ClickUp?
You technically could schedule. I don't really recommend it because it's kind of there's a lot of steps to get it to schedule, but
Okay.
my entire social media process is in ClickUp.
Okay.
And it's amazing because I have this really cool thing. So ClickUp has automations. And so what I do is I write an email and then I have these cool little automations where I type in like content ideas from the email and ClickUp will automatically create a task for me just out of my little brain dump of ideas. And then I can go into my content area and plan out based off of a calendar. ClickUp has a calendar view. So you can plan out what content you want to share on what day. You go in there, you can write the caption. And I do have someone that supports me in my content creation. So typically, like I do a lot of video. And so I record the raw audio. We dump it into ClickUp. She edits all of it and puts it out into TikTok and Instagram for me. Um, Instagram just came out with a scheduler, which is really cool, like inside the app.
Yeah,
So
that is nice.
we are using that. And then TikTok, we just post manually because most of my stuff is video anyway, which is another reason why I don't have necessarily a need for a scheduler. But what I would do in this situation is have a task at like the end of the month that says schedule out all content. And so my social media person would know to go into, like later or Planoly or whatever and schedule everything out based off of what we've decided for that month. So ClickUp allows us to break down projects, if you will. And since we're on the topic of content, the idea there is it's really overwhelming to have a task on a sticky note or a notebook that says create next month's content. right?
Yes.
Right. There's so many smaller steps that go into that,
Right.
that one piece is very overwhelming. And so what I love about ClickUp is you can break things down. So every single week, we have a specific task that we take care of to create next month's content. So we're at the end of the month right now. So right now we are scheduling everything out through Instagram, and then also getting it all loaded into TikTok so we can very quickly post. But like next week, we are going to plan out March's content. And then the next week after that, I will record all of it. And then the week after that, we edit all of it. So we have tasks that are broken into the entire month. And at the end, we have an entire month of content created. And I love, so those are all set recurring with ClickUp. So we know every single week we have some sort of marketing content to do, but it's not this overwhelming thing of, I have to create 7 pieces of content and write all of the captions and create all the graphics and record all the videos and edit it with this one task, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's good that you have a process to kind of simplify and streamline how you create content. And it sounds to me that ClickUp is the overarching like management tool and brings everything together to simplify and streamline your processes in your business. So that's really cool.
Correct.
I'm really glad that you shared ClickUp with us today. Before we end our conversation, is there any last minute advice you would like to share or tips when it comes to preparing for emergencies for your business?
Yeah, I just want to say start simple. So in that aspect, like maybe you don't have a written process, but maybe you like record a video of like how to mass email somebody. And so that process alone will help. So like start really small and start just thinking about, if I was not here tomorrow because of an emergency, what would happen? What would I want my business to do? Would I want it to just be silent? Would I want my clients to know? Would I want my email list to know? Like start asking those questions for yourself and figuring out what's important to you to put in place for that emergency before you just try and build this massive emergency plan with all of these, processes and systems and all this kind of stuff. Just think about like what you actually want to happen overall if an emergency were to arise. And maybe you have a different vision for if you're out for a week versus if you're out for a month versus if you're out for 3 months, just depending on that there as well. And then kind of start to write out what those different areas look like for you. And then reach out to somebody if you don't have a team and say, hey, I have this process. I would love if, you'd be able to implement this if something were to happen. Just so that there's a plan in place, and talk to them and let them know like what this looks like and stuff and see if they're able to help you.
Yeah, my mind is already turning with a few different aspects of my business and who I would want to have an emergency contact and give them like the sign in and the passwords and feel comfortable with them, making some changes if I were to be out for more than like a week or so. So,
Yeah.
Kaci, today's conversation was really great. I think it's something that business owners can't ignore. We're still in the beginning phase of the year. I think this is something that you definitely want to get done before it's like spring break hits and summer breaks and you're off enjoying. And then you're like, oh, wait, I need to be
Right.
working on my emergency plan. And when we think about it, that's when something's going to happen and it's going to be a little too late. So, Kaci, where can the audience connect with you and learn more from you regarding emergencies and ClickUp?
Yeah, of course. So I am very active on Instagram. So my Instagram is just my name, Kaci Ackerman. So come say hello. I also have a freebie that is a 10-step guide of getting started with ClickUp. And it kind of just goes through the steps of setting everything up. And you can learn like best practices from me of how I have mine set up. So I would love for you to grab that as well. But mainly come say hi. I love making new connections and just having more, business friends out there.
Awesome, Kaci. I will make sure that everything is in our show notes. And thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.